Hello, Bravo bosses, and welcome to the Bravo Investigator Podcast with me, your host, Dana. Today on the agenda for our reality roundup, which is what I am now calling Pop Culture Pulse Check, because quite honestly, that was way too hard for me to say. So, reality roundup, we are doing Love is Blind, Real Housewives of Potomac, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Summer House, Teen Mom, Southern Charm, Southern Hospitality, and Traitors. And just to let you guys know what the schedule is, every Monday, we are doing our reality roundup where I give you all the tea from all of your favorite reality shows. And that episode is audio and video. And you can watch the video on Hurrdat Entertainment's YouTube channel. And then on Saturdays, I'm doing mini recaps of your favorite Bravo shows. Right now, I'm doing Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Summer House, Southern Charm, and Southern Hospitality. And those episodes are audio only. Now, I do apologize that this past week's Monday episode was not video. I was having some issues with my skin, so I decided not to do video. But if you want to go back, you can listen to that episode anywhere that you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever. All right, guys, let's get into it. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope everyone had a good week and weekend. Mine was okay. Oh, no, I fell on a patch of black ice walking my dog on Wednesday. Oh, no, sorry. The day before that, I vomited and had like massive diarrhea right before a very big presentation I had at my job, which was like my very first big presentation in front of like all the big wigs. And then the next day, I fell on black ice at like 6 a.m. walking my dog. But now I'm good. So, yeah, last week was a little bit of a hot mess. And I also want to apologize to you guys for not doing a video episode last week. So, last week's episode of Pop Culture Pulse Check, which is now Reality Roundup, I did just an audio episode and not a video episode because I've just been going through it with my skin. And I'm not even sure how much I want to tell you guys about it because it's like gross. But it's not quite acne, but let's call it that. And I've been going through this for like a year and then not really dealing with it because I just figured it is what it is and it'll clear up. And then it wasn't clearing up. And I wasn't really leaving the house, so I guess it didn't really matter that much. My job was like fully work from home. But now it has just gotten so bad. And I know you guys can't really tell, but that's the point. I'm wearing a lot of makeup if you guys are watching me on YouTube. Um, but in my new job, they just have meetings all the time that are on video. I also have to go into the office every Wednesday, and I've literally avoided going to the office the last two Wednesdays in a row. I've made up excuses because, well, one was when I fell on black ice, and I feel like fair enough, like let me work from home. I'm not crippled. But like, I was just like, it was just getting so uncomfortable because now I feel like I'm now avoiding in-person situations. And I know you're thinking, okay, well, Dana, go to the doctor, but like, it's not that simple. It takes quite a while to get a doctor's appointment here. Like, first you have to go to a family doctor. And I know, like, I'm in Canada, free healthcare, so I have no reason to complain. And I'm not complaining, but my appointment with my family doctor is in like 3 weeks from now. And then I'm asking her for a referral to a dermatologist because that's how it works here. So I was like a ways away. And then I just thought to myself, why don't I just like Google this problem? So I Googled it. I was like, maybe I have figured it out. And then it seems like I was able to buy the majority of the products to fix the problem from my local drugstore. So I am very happy right now. I thought I was gonna have this like really long-term skin problem, and I'm not sure yet. I am, I'm day one in, but I found some products just like literally at Shoppers Drug Mart, which I guess is your version of like Walgreens, and I'm really excited because I think my skin is starting to clear up. So yay me! And also an update on my dog adoption stuff. Like I keep finding these dogs, I get into conversations with these rescue agencies, and then they just like ghost me. And it came to a point where I'm like, am I on like a list somewhere? I don't know. Are all of these agencies talking to each other and telling them like not to adopt me? I don't know why. Like, I'm an excellent dog mom. I dedicate my entire life to my dog Judy. Those of you who know me know that. So, anyways, that's what I'm going through there. Like, it's so great when the dogs end up being adopted by like their foster or someone. I mean, like, that's great. I just feel like, why am I struggling so hard to find an available rescue dog? It just seems so weird where I'm like, am I gonna have to go to Kijiji? Like, that's ridiculous. So, I don't know. I just really want a best friend for my dog, and I never really leave her, but if I do, I just want her to have someone when she's, or when, yeah, when she's alone. And even when I'm working from home, she just seems so lonely. So I just want her to have someone to play with. So I'm still going through that. And there just isn't a ton of news this week in the reality sphere. So I'm going to do a mixture of mini recaps and news of our favorite reality TV shows today. And let's get into it. So let's start with Love is Blind, because Dave pisses me off. But you know what? I think I'm going to start with Alex because that's some pretty interesting tea. And I actually want to issue a trigger warning for this part of the episode because there will be discussions of sexual assault. So Alex is, oh God, I always have to do this in my mind of like which white guy is which on Love is Blind. Okay, so Alex was the one who was interested in Madison. And then he wasn't on her side about the way Mason handled things between her and Meg, in that he told Madison that she was like the one, but then he took it back, or something like that. So he didn't end up picking her. And now there's all these allegations about him and having interactions, sexual ones, with underage girls. So story time with Riki, she is like the queen when it comes to Love is Blind. She has all the tea. So I'm gonna play you guys a clip from her because she has this really long video that outlines everything that's being alleged about Alex. So I'm gonna play it. Again, it's really, really long, but I really think it's important to give a lot of context to what these allegations are and how deep they really go, especially with how much research Riki actually did into these allegations. You can see that and hear that in the video if you listen to it. So, and you can always go to Storytime with Riki, her Instagram account, to watch these videos in full. So I'm going to play this one for you guys about Alex. And again, trigger warning.
Me and the allegations being made about Alex. Honestly, I did not want to touch the story until I talked to the women myself. So yes, I personally talked to 6 of the women who came forward and made allegations about Alex. They were able to provide some level of receipts. The events happened over a decade ago, so they were able to gather what they could. We're going to go over it all here today. There's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot to go over, but trust me, you're going to want to watch this video. So starting from the beginning, if you have no idea what's going on, Alex from Love is Blind Season 8 was posted in the Are We Dating the Same Guy Minneapolis group. He was posted back in June. So this is before the season cast was announced. This is before he was on the season 7 reunion. It is before anybody knew who he was. When he was posted in this group, a lot of anonymous users came forward with some very serious allegations against Alex. Pause to read, but it's probably nothing you haven't seen already up until this point. Some of the women actually located me and I was able to locate the rest, get a little bit more context behind these allegations. Here's what I found. So here we go. I knew Alex October 2015, April 2016. I was one of the girls who would party with him. I was 17. There were other high schooler guys and girls, all 15 to 17. I remember Alex, we called him Brownie. Alex gave us free booze and I believe weed whenever we went over. I'm not even kidding. The walls would be lined with alcohol. I knew he would be alone with minors, girls at these parties in the basement. I've been doing some digging and I found the house that he was renting. So I did ask 2 of the women if they were able to locate where these parties took place. It's worth mentioning that 2 of the women were able to look at pictures that they took from this home. And you know, an iPhone geotags the location or tells where a photo was taken. And 2 separate women were able to identify the same house. This is one woman, as you can see, it's on 10th by St. Bonaventure Church, which you can see in the corner there. This is an entirely different victim, St. Bonaventure Church and 10th Street. It's worth mentioning that one of the geotag photos that I just showed you was timestamped December 12th, 2015, making Alex at the time 20 years old. One of the victims was able to provide a photo from these parties. Everybody's face has been blocked out, obviously, because they are minors, but you can see that there is tons of alcohol. I do have the address of this home, which is publicly listed as one of Alex's previous addresses. I did block out the address, but as you can see, this location is the same location that is on 10th Avenue that the victims' photos were pinging from. And from the pictures provided, you can see that this is the same home, same living room. Previous addresses are public record, so it is public record that this address is listed as a previous address for Alex. Before you say, how do we know that it's the same Alex Brown? The address listed right beneath it is also a previous address of Alex that I have a lease agreement for. Just so we know that we're talking about the same Alex here, and that address does actually link back to the Alex Brown in question. Here is a contract for another previous address of Alex. Some of the victims were able to provide multiple pictures from this home and these parties where you can clearly see a lot of alcohol and teenagers. This is just for context, again, for context, again, for context. Now, it is unclear what transpired at these parties or in the basement of these parties, but what is clear is that parties were taking place at a location that Alex is linked to, and alcohol was provided to minors. It is also worth mentioning that no criminal charges have been filed against Alex, and there are no police reports or incident reports on file for Alex. I did check. Now, here's where things take a turn. You guys know on the show how Alex mentioned that he had a girlfriend for 2 years and she cheated on him the whole time and gave this whole sob story to garner sympathy. Well, I spoke to this ex-girlfriend and she gave me a little bit more details on their relationship. Now, she did provide photos of the two of them together, which I am not going to show here. She did provide proof that her and Alex were actually in a relationship. And this is what she shared with me. She said that he was obsessed with making her look younger. He asked her to wear her hair a certain way, asked her to get braces, and he requested that she dress younger. She said that one day they were out on a date. She was wearing a dress and wedges, and they saw a young girl. She said, to her knowledge, she looked about 13 to 14 years old, who was wearing skinny jeans, Converse, and a crop top. And he said, you should dress more like that. She also said that when together, he liked watching young porn. Told her that you can just type young after any search watching. They will give you searches of people who look really young. She said that when they were together, that Alex warned her that there might be young girls coming forward accusing him of certain things and to ignore them because they are all young girls who were obsessed with him. She did go on to say that she was a TA in college and she would often read some of Alex's essays and just give her feedback on them. And she said that for his environmental ethics class at Normandale College, he had an essay on utilitarianism and how stealing someone's food and replacing it before they notice is the same as SAing someone in their sleep and them having no idea that they were SA'd. For context, utilitarianism is a theory that states that the best action is one that produces the most good for the most people. I guess the point of the paper was to take a small example and apply it to an extreme and see if the result still applies when applied to an extreme. Now, while I don't have access to the paper itself, I do have a text thread conversation where she raises her concerns about this paper. Okay, so let's get into these text messages. Before anybody says, how do we know that this is Alex? I asked for the phone number, and this number is publicly linked to the Alex Brown. As you can see here, he said, do you want to read my essay? I used the grape during sleep argument might get an F. She says, oh my God, let me read it. Also be careful because your teacher might report it. He says the guideline for the essay is to come up with an actual situation in my life that I'm not sure was either morally right or wrong and to analyze it from the lens of a utilitarian. It's just a first draft. She says, very interesting. If utilitarianism benefits everyone, how was the grape beneficial to the girl? He sends a face and says, did you read it? She says, yes, I'm talking about the last sentence in your conclusion. He says it's irrelevant because there was no effect for the girl. Just like me throwing my trash in the garbage, no effect for everyone else. She goes on to say, sure, but according to your conclusion, it benefits everyone. He goes on to say it doesn't have to benefit everyone. I never said that. She says, got ya. If there is an effect on a person from your action, it should be positive. If there is no effect, then it doesn't matter because it's irrelevant. Yeah, she's just raising concerns on this paper in general. Taking advantage of someone in that context then has a lot of meaning and it just leaves me a little confused. He says, how? She says, taking advantage of a coward, I believe that's supposed to say coworker, by taking their food versus taking advantage of a girl by putting your inside of her while she's unconscious. Both are two different extremes. So again, they're going back and forth about the topic of this paper. You can pause to read if you want to read the rest. So this is all Alex. He's telling her that because she doesn't agree with the paper that he's worried that she might have autism.
What the fuck?
Since there is no negative outcome for the victim, therefore, so I take the same theory and apply it to a very serious issue, SA. So again, a very concerning conversation.
Okay, a lot to unpack. So, a few things here. One, I want to say about the parties. I'm not really sure about that. Like, the parties are happening at his house. We're not really sure what's going on there besides alcohol. Um, I do also want to say that the age of consent apparently in Minnesota is 16, which is crazy. And I do want to give some grace for people being young and still having room to grow. Like, for example, you want to think about people like Max Boyens, who from Vanderpump Rules, who made these racist tweets. And when Andy asked him at the reunion, when did you make those tweets? He said 10 years ago, which would have made him 17 years old, which is crazy because you're basically a child at that point, yet you're being held accountable for your actions as a child for the rest of your life. However, when we continued to listen to that clip and heard about the rest of it, I'm sorry, what the fuck is this man saying? He is saying that stealing someone's food and then replacing it is the same as being raped in your sleep, i.e., not remembering it. And not is it just not the same, it has no harm. That is fucking insane to me. And then what's even more insane is that when his girlfriend tends to disagree, not even just leave him, because, like, if it were me, sir, I would be fucking leaving you for even just making this paper and making this argument. She's not leaving you. She is just, debating you on it and having a healthy conversation with you. And then you tell her that she must be autistic for not understanding your point. You're saying that her brain must process things differently or process things more slowly for her not to understand the very, very clear point that you think that you are making, which you aren't, because what you are saying is absolutely fucking insane. What he's saying is he's equating her not understanding what he's saying to her having to process information differently or more slowly in order to understand him. Because he is right. She just must have a different way to understand things or may have a problem because she's just not picking up what he's putting down. When he can't even fathom the idea that he could be wrong. When, sir, you are motherfucking wrong. The fact that he'd even put this in a paper to begin with is wild. But to make it the same thing that you're replacing food and raping someone, but them just not remembering it and it being the same is fucking disgusting. You're fucking disgusting. Like, I don't see that any other way. And then to talk to his girlfriend in a way where he's talking down to her, basically, like he's using the R word, is what he's saying. Thank God he used the autism word, but basically he's calling her the R word. He's basically saying, if you don't understand me, there must be something wrong with you. I cannot believe that she even stayed with him past this. I'm not even sure when that was. And I guess the only other things that we know about Alex are that from this last batch of episodes, so this was the episodes 10 to 12, is that apparently after the experiment, he contacted Madison and said he wanted to see her at the airport and then said, like, come hang out with me in LA. And I'm not sure if they actually did. I think they may have dated for like 5 minutes, according to him on the Vile Files. And according to her in the batch of episodes, when she asked him about Mason, because there was that whole debate about like whether he was on Mason's side or her side about how he left things between his two women, he said, fuck Mason, apparently at the airport. But then on the Vile Files, Alex was like, Mason is like one of my good buds, and that's why I was standing up for him. So I don't know if we'll see more of this guy. I don't know if he'll be on the reunion, but I literally never want to see this person again. I don't think there is room for growth. I think the way that he speaks is absolutely disgusting. It's wild what you can see come out of these people from these very little glimpses on Love is Blind, but it's sort of become the expectation that these people go on Love is Blind and then their entire lives and everything that they've ever done comes out of the woodwork, blows up, and they become enemy number one, but it's great for us. So I think aside from Alex, because he's not in a couple, I'm just going to talk about the rest of the couples. So let's move into Dave and Lauren. So here's the deal with Dave. He went into this experiment as an experiment, and he told his sister that he had no plans to take this seriously. Then he got engaged, and his sister was like, what the fuck? Then he fully admits that he led his sister on and that he was going to end it, but then he didn't end it. And then Lauren even writes a letter to his sister and he doesn't give it to her. So, of course, the sister's going to be thinking what she's thinking. But then on the other end, I just feel like Dave can't get over the fact that Lauren had another guy's dick in her a couple of days before. Like, that's what he can't get over. And it's also the fact that it's someone that he's met before. Like, that irks him. It's both the connection and the ego. And he admits that to the camera, not to Lauren, that his ego couldn't get over the fact that she was with another guy. And I just wonder if, like, the whole small town factor was a negative here. Like, Lauren has shown her commitment by writing the letter, by wanting to meet his friends. I wonder if the small town factor was actually a negative thing here in the sense that, like, everybody knows each other. So everybody was more likely to have dated someone or known someone who dated someone. And I just wonder if that ended up being to this city's detriment, I guess. But Lauren has shown her commitment by writing the letter, by wanting to meet his friends. He's the one who keeps running away and not staying at the apartment and not being honest with his sister. Like, he's the one who's lying to his sister. Also, this debate about honesty gets me because he's saying, like, my friends don't lie. Like, I believe my friends, but why can't he reconcile that maybe just this guy was lying? Like, your friends weren't lying, just the guy was lying. Like, let's call him the ex, even though he wasn't Lauren's ex, the ex, right? But at the end of the day, no one can say for an absolute fact the truth aside from Lauren's vagina at the end of the day. And Dave is saying, like, that guy being offered to come on the show and him not wanting to shows that, like, he's telling the truth. Okay, but that guy also made his own Love is Blind poster of himself on his Instagram, okay? So maybe he didn't want to go on the show because of his job. The guy's a lawyer. Maybe he didn't want to come off as a liar on camera. Maybe he didn't want to have like this portrayal of himself on camera for years to come, right? It lives forever and he's a lawyer. Hashtag liar. So, there's lots of reasons why that person may have not come on the show, but he is showing his true self in other ways, like even sending that DM to Lauren's friend saying like, "Oh, should we blow up this wedding?" Right? Like this is not a guy of good character. And then when they go bowling, he's like, "I don't introduce my family to just anyone, and I don't want to waste my sister's time," which are two such gut punches for Lauren. You're her fiance, so for you to say like, "I don't introduce my sister to just anyone," that's your fiance. That is the person you should introduce her to. And for you to say, like, I don't want to waste her time, I mean, that the proof is in the pudding again, right there. You do not feel anything for Lauren because if you did, you would do these things. And then he says to her, I just don't know why you couldn't admit that you fucked up. And she's like, I did admit that. And he's like, yeah, but not right away. Okay, like at this point, more do you want from her? She's showing up. Her family is showing up. You're not the one who's ready for marriage. It's just showing everything right here. He is showing that he's not ready because he's not ready to tell his sister the truth. He's not ready to fight for her with his friends. He's the one who's not ready. So Lauren ended up being on the Val Files this week, and she gave us a little bit more information about the ex. So she said that it started as like maybe it could have been romantic, but then the casting conversations were happening. So he was like, yeah, we could totally keep it casual. And he was dating other girls. It was a friends with benefits situation, and he knew about the show. But she thought that like it was very clear that she was not interested in him romantically. And it's funny, she said that the Trevor situation. So remember a few seasons back was like that guy Trevor who had a girlfriend before the show, and she came out with all these texts where he was literally flat out saying, I love you, you're my girlfriend, I'm gonna go on this show, I'm not gonna marry anyone, and then I'm gonna come back to you, right? All of that was apparently happening while they were filming this, and Lauren was saying to herself, oh God, like, I hope this isn't going to happen to me, but then said to herself, no, like, I know my own narrative, so I know that that's not going to happen because that's not the same situation. And it's funny because the Trevor thing was different because it was direct evidence of a relationship to the point where it almost didn't even seem real for a period of time, where I was just like, these texts must be fake because he's literally directly saying, I love you. We are in a relationship. I'm going to go on Love is Blind for my business. Then I will not get married. See you when I get back. And then I will marry you then. Like, nothing could have been more clear cut as to what the situation was. And that's not the situation here. Dave is trying to make it that situation. He's trying to slut shame Lauren. And that's why it was funny even when her mom was like, don't you know how boring Lauren is? I mean, I hate to say that about her, but like, and everyone sort of has to almost put her down to make the point that they're trying to make. It's like, look at her. She looks like this boring little teacher, this sweet girl, not like this reality whore trying to get her bank, trying to get her time, her 15 minutes of fame. That's very obviously not who this girl is. And when he admits later this is all about his ego, I mean, that is true, right? I think he, at the very core of this, just couldn't get over the fact that someone else had their dick in her, and it was someone that he knew. And I just wonder if he's learned anything from this in terms of, well, he says he's learned so much in the past month, even though he didn't spend any time with Lauren in that past month. But I wonder if he learned anything in terms of like being able to break off previous mindsets, because what would have been an appropriate amount of time? If she had slept with that guy, but it was 2 years ago, would that be okay? What would have been the cutoff that would have been appropriate for him? Okay. So, and yeah, and I think he was using this as an out, obviously. All right. So let's move on to Devin and Virginia. All I really want to talk about here is like very quickly the prenup of it all. I mean, it shouldn't have even been a conversation because obviously you should get a prenup. You've known each other for 5 minutes. The family should completely understand that and moving on. Like, you've known each other for 5 minutes. But then when they start talking about the lingering things that they still need to talk about, and Virginia says, like, what are your like political opinions? Like, she brings up the fact that she can't get an abortion in this country meaning the United States. And Devin doesn't really seem to like have an opinion on it. And that's what made me at first start to realize, okay, maybe this guy isn't very grown up. Like he didn't really seem to understand what a prenup was and that it was beneficial to him. And now we're talking about this issue here. Oh, and then if you think back in the pods, like his sort of misconceptions about being bisexual and what that means. So here we are talking about abortion, and it's very normal that this woman wants to be with someone who has the same stance as she does. And he's like, well, I've thought about it like both ways. I've thought about it like, well, you know, the guy should have a say. And she's like, yeah, but like that's not the point here. Like the point that she's trying to make is like that she wants to make sure she's with someone who also believes that women should have the right to an abortion. And then Devin asks her if it would be a big deal if they voted differently. And wow, like maybe these two just don't know each other at all. Like, it's interesting how politics does just come down to core values. And even though abortion shouldn't be a political thing, it is. And if you don't align in your core values, I just don't see how you can be aligned in marriage. It's almost like when so many marriages ended up splitting up during COVID because people had different opinions on vaccines, which became a political issue, even though it wasn't. And then people ended up having such differing opinions that their marriages broke up over it. So, yes, I do think you have to be politically aligned to get married because your politics typically come down to your core values. And I feel like you have to have the same core values as the person that you're marrying. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I am not married. I've never even been in a real long-term relationship. But for me, if I were, I would want to have the same core values as someone. That is very important to me. And I would want to have the same politics as them. Let's move on to Sarah and Ben, which is a little bit similar in terms of some political opinions, but we'll get there in a second. I just want to start with the TikTok of it all because, each couple, as I mentioned, has their behind the scenes drama. And it was interesting to actually be able to get to see that this season, as opposed to seeing it play out as the show airs or after the show airs. But the TikToks and the Instagram and all of that became part of the show. So I'm actually going to play you guys this TikTok because, it's part of the show. It's what we're talking about here. And I personally don't think it's a big deal, but I just want to play it just to make sure that we're all on the same page.
So someone just leaked to me some of the photos of the cast of the new season of Love is Blind that they're filming here in Minneapolis. And like I knew when I heard that they were filming here, in my stomach that I would recognize some of the names on that list and I would have some information on those boys. Because you know what? Minneapolis is a big city, small town sort of vibe where everyone knows each other and the dating pool here is very, very small. So if you've messed up, someone's going to know about it. And I'm not sure how much I can say about it, but I am going to say that I'm just exhausted and tired of society rewarding shitty men who treat women terribly and manipulate and lie all the time. They are horrible people and they will do anything to get what they want and to get attention. And I get that that is like the whole point of reality television. And that's the reason that they're on that show, right? To make good entertainment. But maybe we can just not reward people who are like that, who have harmed people in their past. And I know this is a vast overreaction, and unfortunately, probably for legal reasons, I shouldn't say exactly who it is, but I will not be watching the Minneapolis season because that shit just makes me sick to my stomach to see someone who's willing to lie to people about wanting to get married just to be on television and get exposure and be a heartthrob. I don't know. I'll probably take this down by tomorrow. This feels stupid coming forward like this. Like, this is what reality television is supposed to be, right? Horrible people.
Okay, so those of you who know me well know that I am a strong feminist. You would think that I would initially side with the woman. I do want to point out that she did not take down this video. This video I actually got today, being over a year from when it was originally posted, so it's still there. I also want to point out that this woman is an influencer. She has 500,000 followers. So to put the idea out there that this was done for clout isn't crazy because she is a person who does obtain views that way and does seem to be making a living that way. I also want to point out that she doesn't name Ben. This is about Ben. And I do think the sketchy nature with which he had blocked her and then didn't tell Sarah about it, but knew about it and then said he didn't really remember her, but then remembered little things later. Totally, I thought all that was sketchy for sure. But this was also 4 years ago. This is someone he hasn't slept with. And I mean, I don't even really know what it is that he did exactly. So I'm personally not worried about it. There is a little bit more tea that's come out about him that apparently way back in the day, after he would sleep with women, he would leave his YouTube business cards. So basically he would make these personalized business cards with a picture of himself that would link to his YouTube channel and his YouTube information. Apparently the channel no longer exists. So I guess you can't even say that he's on the show now for clout because he doesn't have this YouTube channel. But I just I just think again, the stuff that comes out about these people after the fact is funny. And I have to, not that they're ever going to come to Toronto, but I need to remind myself, literally, don't even try out for these shows. Every single skeleton you've ever had in your closet is just going to come out. So I think this is ridiculous. But anyways, as far as the couple goes, I feel like their main issue seems to be religion. So Sarah has a gay sister, and what's the guy's name? Ben. Ben. So Ben is religious, but he won't even say the word gay. He'll say, I have friends that are that way, but he won't even say the word. And then later on we meet his friends, but it seems like he kind of cherry picked those friends because two of them don't seem to know each other. One of them is gay, but one of them says oh, I've never been to a service, and then one says to the other, oh, you haven't? So I'm not saying those people aren't really his friends or people who aren't really in his life, but it sort of seems like he cherry picked those people to make it look look, I am diverse, see? And, she confronts him about his faith and equality after she ends up listening to a service. And I think it's really cool of her to have said, I never intended to be religious or to go to service, and I'm doing that for you, So you're seeing that compromise in the relationship, but where she's struggling is the church's stance on equality. And so she says, well, what is their stance? And he says he doesn't remember. And so she says, she doesn't want church to create conflict in their family. She's worried about, whether their kids are gay and if this is going to be an issue. And I just feel like these are interesting conversations to have in 2025 because you would think that this would be an advanced civilization in Minnesota, this is the United States. But at the same time, we've sort of seen this in the other couples. I mean, not to the extent of political conversations we were having in the DC season, but it's interesting to be having questions and conversations around equality in 2025 in Minnesota. But, she says she didn't see herself originally going to church regularly because she just doesn't agree with their stance. And he does make a good point that not everyone has to believe every aspect of every religion. And that's why I personally believe there's so many different denominations of Christianity, for example. So I don't believe in this part, so we created this kind of Christianity, or we don't believe in this part, so we created this kind. And I've counted up to 19 different kinds of Christianity, right? You can't what's the word? Abide by every single tenet that your religion has. You do your best, right? Which I think is what he's trying to say. But at the same time, it comes back to these core values, right? You have to have those same core values in order to get married. And she says it's such a value to her, and that's why she wants to make sure they're aligned. And he makes another good point where he says, but it sort of minimizes the values that we do have that we are aligned on. So Both excellent points. I do think that they end up getting married at the end of it. We'll see in the finale episodes that will come this week, I guess. But I appreciate her continuing to ask about it because if it is something that's such a value to you, then, make sure that you're on the same page. I appreciate that as someone, I think they're like the youngest couple who are moving forward with this, and yet they're having those really tough conversations. But what I'm worried about with him is just how not advanced maybe he is, but then I guess he still has that willingness to learn. Taylor and Daniel, they're perfect, no notes. And Joey and Monica, I guess aside from her bitter, jealous sister and like that weird, like communal sock drawer thing, they are oddly cute together. So I guess all that's missing is him like declaring his love for her so she feels more secure, but I guess maybe we'll see that at the wedding episodes. And that's it for Love is Blind. Okay, let's move on to the Real Housewives of Potomac. As we all know, Karen Huger was sentenced this past week. And I brought this up in last week's episode that we actually got more information about Karen Huger's past recently. So initially, there were these rumors floating around that she actually has a history of 4 DUIs and not just one, not just two, like we had initially thought. And now it's confirmed that between 2006 and 2011, she had two other DUIs. So a total of 4 DUIs total. And it was on that basis that the judge really just kind of hammered down on her. And I think that's really why the fandom is so disappointed because this is repeat behavior. We know that it's a horrible thing to drink and drive, and it's an even worse thing not to learn from your mistakes. We did have one of our partners in crime, one of our other Bravo content creators, another podcaster actually down at the courthouse who was there at the sentencing and was actually able to like live tweet everything that was happening. So her Instagram handle is WEIGO podcast. So We I Go podcast, I think. So I'm going to go over some of her tweets, and that will give us a sense of what was going down in the courtroom. So it says, he said Karen had the hang of working the system prior to 2011. All warnings went in one ear and out the other, but she remained undeterred. The judge said Karen is no stranger to drinking while driving on our roads. When she got a PBJ in 2007, one would think Miss Huger learned her lesson. In 2008, before the ink was dry on the other one, she was arrested again. He's not playing. The judge is reading Karen's actions on that body cam for filth. Oh God, remember that? Like the whole I'm Thomas Jefferson's concubine and like Andy Cohen calls me the Grand Dame. Like that's the thing. She wasn't even a little drunk. She was like slaughtered, sloshed, like nothing I've quite ever seen, to be honest. Some more tweets are she had signed up to participate in the program where she has a handheld breath device. It will require her to blow 4 times a day. The results go to whomever she chooses. She went to a place called Right Turn for 48 hours. It's a place with rooms meant to look like jail cells so she could experience what that's like. She also had a continuing relationship with her therapist. Her lawyers presenting reasons to the judge why she went to the type of recovery center she went to. He said you have to make it appealing for people to step away from their everyday lives, sort of like an incentive to get help. Um, Ray said the kids are a little hurt by this. Her lawyer asked if Ray was aware of everything that Karen has done in the last few months to get help, and he said yes. He told the judge Karen is doing very well and has recovered from the accident, and then Karen is crying. And so that was when he was testifying. Her lawyer says that she's a good person and has been gracious through this experience. He's asked the judge for a suspended sentence, 3 years probation, AA twice per week, make therapy a condition, and something else that she couldn't hear, and the prosecution wasn't buying it. And then Karen spoke and she apologized for bringing this to trial and was arrogant in thinking she could handle her alcohol. And then she was sentenced. She got 2 years executed incarceration, suspended all but 1 year, 5 years probation, and she'll serve 1 year. She still wouldn't really admit that it was an alcohol problem. She said it was anxiety meds, but the judge didn't let her off easy. And then this one last tweet was that as Karen was being taken into custody, she yelled, "Love you, Ray. God's got you. You'll be all right. God bless you." It's really sad. And I wonder if Ray will be all right, to be quite honest with you. I mean, is it just me or did this all happen really fast? Like, this was all in March 2024 when she got in this accident. And so, it's been a year. And usually I feel like these things go on for much longer. And that's usually because the person is trying to postpone things, either changing lawyers or changing strategies or um, I don't know, trying to do different things. Maybe she was trying to move this forward as quickly as possible for some reason. I'm not quite sure. But I never really thought she was going to go to prison, and so the idea that she is just kind of like mind-blowing. Not in the sense that she doesn't deserve it, she obviously does. It's just wow. And this adds to the housewives that we know who have gone to prison. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, I actually have a whole mouse pad that is housewives that have been incarcerated. So if you guys can see here, it's a whole mouse pad of mugshots. So um, I also do worry for Ray. I don't know what their relationship is like in the home in terms of like what she does for him and that kind of thing, but he is kind of an older man, so I hope he will be okay. And honestly, I don't think that she'll be okay. And not just what Giselle said about like not being able to wear her wigs. I mean, she's older as well. She's used to a certain lifestyle, and that makes me worry for her. And we've already gotten word that the Real Housewives of Potomac season 10 will proceed without her. So they're not waiting for her like they did with Teresa. And what's interesting about that is like at the end of the day, she probably isn't even going to do the 1 year. She'll probably only do 6 months. And the fact that they're not even going to wait for her for that, I think is pretty telling. So I feel like we always end up having the conversation of every time a housewife goes to jail, we always end up having the conversation of, is Bravo going to bring them back? And I'm curious what you guys think in this case, if it would be appropriate to bring Karen back, given she is found guilty of these crimes. She has done it many times before. It's clear that she doesn't learn from her mistakes. Is this different than Jen Shaw? Different than Teresa Giudice? Different than the next, right? All right, let's move on to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And I just have a couple of quick updates here. So, as we know, Teddi Mellencamp has been going through it with her cancer journey, and she has actually updated us herself on her Instagram. And she wrote, I am so grateful for the incredible surgeons, doctors, and nurses who made my surgery a success and my recovery process comfortable. In full transparency, more tumors were removed than expected, 4 in total. This fight is not over, but that round has been won. The laughter, support, and patience of my kids, my family, and my closest friends is one gift which words cannot properly express my gratitude. As I move on to the next steps in my treatment, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for the outpouring of love and prayers. I see them, and they're definitely helping me stay strong. And then she posted a picture which says staples out and ready for radiation. So again, I am really happy for her that she has the kind of love and support that she does around her, including Edwin, right? So prayers to Teddi, prayers to her family. That's all I really want to say in that regard. We did get a seating chart for the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunion, which filmed this past weekend. So next to Andy on the right side is Dorit, then Bose, then Erica, then Kathy Hilton. And then on Andy's left, we have Kyle, Sutton, Garcelle, and Jennifer Tilly. It's funny to see Jennifer Tilly and Kathy Hilton as part of the seating charts. But yeah, I mean, this makes sense. Kyle always gets first chair, but that is, I guess, the majority of the fighting this season is either between Kyle and Dorit or Dorit and Sutton. So I guess the placements are where they are. I mean, I don't normally have like long debates about like reunion seating charts and what's appropriate or not appropriate, but that's the seating chart if you guys want to know it. Okay, let's move on to Summer House. So Carl Radke has been making the rounds, doing a ton of press. He was doing Betches interviews, Watch What Happens Live. He did virtual reality, and he said on Watch What Happens Live, like not much. I mean, like basically you're being asked rapid fire questions, but he was asked about coming back to the house, and he said like, yeah, he was nervous. He had just found out the day before that Lindsay was pregnant officially, and he said that like he's over her, but it was still like an adjustment period for him to adjust to the fact that she had really moved on. And then Lindsay posted a story over this past weekend saying, I'm so confused at Bravo Watch What Happens Live. Didn't this guy break up with me 2 months before our wedding? And now we're supposed to feel bad for him because he wasn't prepared for me to really have moved on? Make it make sense. Okay, I really love Lindsay, I do, but I don't really feel for her on this one. Again, he's being asked questions, first of all. And yes, he broke up with you. And yes, that was awful for you. That doesn't mean he didn't still have feelings about it. He was obviously really struggling with it and up until the very last moments. Even in that conversation with Kyle, he hadn't fully made up his mind. So even if he had fully made up his mind, he still was in a relationship with you for 2 years. He was your friend for many years. He was still sad and he still needed to adjust because not only were you no longer in a relationship, you were no longer friends. And not only were you no longer friends, you moved on with somebody else, even though he didn't want to be with you. So I think it's normal for him to need like a little period of adjustment. And no, I don't think he's trying to make anyone feel bad for him. He's just being honest that like it took him a minute. It took him a minute to adjust to the fact that Lindsay moved on. I personally feel like Lindsay and Carl both thought that their drama were going to be the biggest drama this season, and then it wasn't. And now they're trying to stir something up because they're kind of side characters right now, if you think about it. So, if she's drawing up some stuff online, then it creates more controversy and more stuff for us to talk about. I mean, I posted this clip of Lindsay saying this and I got like 500 likes, right? And it's creating a debate. People are like, well, Team Lindsay, Team Carl. So I get what you're doing. I get the PR machine is PR Lindsay, and whatever, whatever. Okay, let's move on to Teen Mom. Now, there isn't really news here, but there was an episode of Teen Mom that aired last week where it was Jade's daughter's birthday, so Chloe, and Jade decided to invite some of the other moms. So she invited Cheyenne and she invited Gary, which is Leah's dad, and Christina. So just to backtrack, one of the original Teen Moms is Amber Portwood. And Amber, like I said, yeah, original OG Teen Mom. She ended up going to jail. Her partner was Gary. They had a daughter, Leah. And while she was in jail, Gary took on custody of Leah and has basically had custody of her ever since. And Amber has always struggled in her life in terms of her mental health. She has bipolar disorder. She also had a drug addiction and just like many other mental health issues that took her a really, really long time to even get properly diagnosed for. But even still, they are very severe mental health issues. I'm not even sure what all of them are. And we've seen her over the years struggle with her mental health issues. We've seen her struggle with her relationship with Leah. We've seen her struggle with her relationship with her ex baby daddy Gary, and we've seen her struggle with all the relationships that she's been in. And we always sort of feel for Amber in a sense because we know that she's struggling with her mental health, and so we feel bad. But on the other end, poor Leah, because Leah is this poor little girl who was raised by just her dad, and she never really had a relationship with her mom because Amber was always putting other men first, to be quite honest, right? Because again, like you're feeling bad for Amber because she's had all these mental health struggles. Yet at the same time, we've also seen her over the years go through relationship after relationship after relationship. And her most recent one was another Gary 2.0, who proposed to her kind of out of nowhere after dating for like 5 minutes. And then he went missing. And then the public thought that she murdered him, which she didn't. And it completely fucked her up mentally, she said. And every time she goes through one of these like relationship turmoils, she goes into a ball and doesn't come out of it and doesn't parent. So she's just going through relationship to emotional ball to relationship to emotional ball. And that's just happening year after year after year to the point where she's never really parented her daughter, Leah. And I think that Gary has always done a really good job of trying to want to incorporate Amber into Leah's life, like inviting her to things. And every time Leah will say something like, I don't really want Amber to be there, I don't really care about her, or I want Christina to adopt me, which is something that's been brought up in last season and currently again in this previous episode or this last week's episode by Leah, he always tries to kind of make a point to her that like you want your mom in your life or you don't really want to do that. And I don't know, it could be two things. It could be him being worried about honestly what would happen to Amber's mental health if Leah fully denounced her as a daughter. Slash, I think he does truly understand the importance of having your birth mom in your life and continuing to try on that journey. But then we continue to see Amber just not show up. And that even happened last season. There was an episode where it was Leah's birthday, and Gary was very specific on the time that Amber had to be there for the dinner, and she was late. And she always turns it around on other people. And another thing that Amber always does is she doesn't really value what Gary and Christina have really done for Leah because they have raised her. She'll always fight back with, like, I raised Leah till she was 2. And it's like, okay, well, Leah's 16 now. And she'll come at Gary say like she's made comments about him like saying something sexual to her. Like she'll always try to like fire back on them with something to denounce how great parents they really were to Leah and to Amber, quite frankly. They've always invited Amber. They've always welcomed Amber into their home. I even remember Gary saying in one episode that she's almost like one of their kids in a way, where they worry about her and they try to protect her in that same way. And then when she gets angry or frustrated, she'll go to the media and she'll say something about them, or she'll denounce like how much Christina's really done. But anyways, to present time, so it's Chloe's birthday. Gary, Leah, and Christina are invited, and so is Cheyenne and her family. And we see Leah talking again about wanting to be adopted by Christina. And for the first time, we see the moms really talk about it because the moms have always been friends with Amber, but we're really seeing it from that other lens where they're finally just like, I just, I can't support her anymore. I really don't get it. I don't get how she doesn't want to be there for her child. I like, there isn't anything. This is what, like, what Cheyenne is saying. She's just saying there isn't anything that could keep me away from Ryder. There just isn't. And I guess what Amber has always been trying to sell us, it's like, well, it's my mental health, it's my mental health. And it's like, okay. But then at the same time, how are you always able to be in relationships with men? Like your mental health is good enough for you to like go on dates and like spend time with men and get engaged and all of that, but it's not good enough for you to spend time with your daughter. Like she'll say things like, but if I'm in this like really bad mental health state, like I don't want Leah to see me that way. Okay. But again, it's been 16 years now, right? Like you have to come out of it. And as a parent, sometimes, ugh, I hate to say it because like it's mental health, but like sometimes you do really just have to suck it up and parent and do what you have to do. And that's why I don't understand how she doesn't appreciate Gary and Amber so much, or Gary and Christina so much, because they literally have been there every day, rain or shine, mental health or mental not, right? Like they have been there for Leah every step of the way, but Amber just doesn't want to admit any fault, which I guess I understand. But even just the way this season even started, where like the cameras tried to come to her door and then she like faked a pregnancy to make them go away, it's just like, it's really, really, really hard to keep defending Amber. And the fact that Leah is now 16 and she's seeing it, it's not even just what she's seeing on TV or what she's hearing from her friends. She's like physically seeing the abandonment issue. She's like, my mom isn't here. And so she's seeing how much Christina has really stepped up for her. And she's also old enough to see what I just said about how, okay, my mom has these mental health issues, but at the same time, she always has a boyfriend. So I don't understand how she has time for all these boyfriends, but she doesn't have time for me. Make it make sense, and it just doesn't. So that's just what I wanted to say. That just came up on last week's episode of Teen Mom. So that's just where I am with Amber Portwood. I actually did a TikTok about her. So I had this crime series I was doing on TikTok called True Crime in a Bite-Sized Rhyme, and I think I'm going to do one for Karen Huger. So it's basically a whole true crime story about a reality star, all the reality stars who have been to jail. And I do it in 90 seconds. So definitely check it out on my TikTok at the Bravo Investigator. Let's move on to Southern Charm. Now, because I didn't end up doing a mini recap of this on the weekend, I'm going to do a bit of that now, plus the news that came out of this episode. So we're still on this weird inorganic trip to the Bahamas, and JT gets there, and he's just feeling weird because everybody hates him except Vanita. And then the group goes to dinner, and Shep is trying to talk about Sienna again, and he reads that horrifying text again, but now he's reading it to Molly. And, she's like, yeah, I mean, like, if I was into somebody, I'd be into that too. And he's not even realizing that, like, Molly is into you. You could date her, but, the heart wants what it wants. So everyone starts coming at JT at the table because they're like, you need to apologize. Everybody here's mad at you. So, like, start your apologies and then we can move on. And he's like, no, I don't want to do this at the table. And then he calls Craig a liar for saying that he said that he called Miss Patricia a bitch because he's saying that Craig is lying about that. And then Madison comes to Craig's defense saying, like, Craig wouldn't lie about that. But, like, wouldn't he? Like, wouldn't he? And then Craig asks Shep to back him up, and he can't because Shep is saying, like, I didn't hear that. And that's one thing that most of the group has maintained, that they could not see JT saying that. You'll see that throughout the rest of this episode. You'll see that throughout the after show. Almost everyone else says they cannot picture JT saying that about Miss Patricia. So Craig is like, well, you said stuff about Austin and Audrey and Madison and Brett. Okay, yeah, he was talking shit about them, but he didn't call them bitches. Like that's what the argument is here. Like that's the debate. And I think like Craig is so far down his own rabbit hole of a lie, like he doesn't even remember the truth himself. And then Madison says to JT, "Did you actually use the word affair?" And he's like, "No." And Shep's like, "Yeah, I don't really remember that either." And honestly, okay, here's what it was. So he was implying that Brett was maybe jealous of Madison wearing his shirt, but in actuality, Brett was jealous, but he was jealous of Austin because that's what the FaceTime was. We've had Madison explain that. Madison was like, "Oh, Brett wanted to know where I went with Austin." Like that's what it was. So Madison tells the camera that maybe this was blown out of proportion. And it's like, you think? I think she doesn't want to come down on Craig because, like, that would be embarrassing. So she's just sort of like quietly walking it back and like walking back her anger a little bit. So then JT gets upset at Vanita for not weighing in, even though that's like his only friend at the table. So, like, fuck you, JT. But then they all leave the dinner, and Vanita actually goes up to JT's room and is like, no cameras. She actually straddles him and says, "Don't act like you don't want this as bad as I do." But he says, like, "No, I can't. I have a girlfriend. I can't do this." Now, Vanita ends up clarifying the order of events here. So she posted on Instagram, "Let me make something very clear. That dinner JT and I had after I made a Branzino was after the Bahamas. Y'all as an audience saw it before. So this week's episode is now making me look like I'm a homewrecker when I'm not. I know what I signed up for, but I also will not allow the world to think I'm that woman when I'm not. Make sure you add this screenshot to all of the Reddit threads." Okay, so she's saying that the scene where they sat down to talk about like will they, won't they, was actually after. Okay, but she knew he had a girlfriend then, so why did they have that conversation? But I guess like she wasn't jumping his bones then. So yeah, she wasn't a homewrecker. I guess they were just like having that conversation because I guess when she was straddling him, he said like I have such strong feelings for you, but I can't because of my girlfriend. So maybe they were having like one more conversation, but fair enough, Anita, and thank you for clarifying. So then Madison meets up with JT, and he maintains that Craig is a liar and that Madison shouldn't have just believed what Craig said. And he does apologize for bringing up the FaceTime call, and he says he feels like Craig is the one that destroyed their relationship. He says, like, there's no point in me being here because I can't negotiate with Craig. Like, he can't negotiate a lie. He can't sit there and be like, "Craig, you're lying," and Craig saying, "No, I'm not." So he just feels like he needs to leave. And look, like, I don't like him and I do think he's annoying, but he definitely is being treated like the black sheep and being scapegoated. I do think he owes Sally an apology, but that's it. Because on the after show, Madison maintains that JT never apologized to her, which is not true, and then they flash back to it. And then Craig has the audacity to say that he's never lied on camera, and then of course they flash back to it the times that he has. So I just think Madison is embarrassed for how hard she went at JT and how she ended their friendship over literally nothing and how tightly she's aligned herself to Craig and that she probably feels just like embarrassed to admit that Craig is wrong and how he was probably the one she shouldn't have been friends with in the first place. So Craig FaceTimes with Paige and tries to get her to tell Shep to see the light about Sienna. And, Shep is hung up on the fact that Sienna said 3 weeks ago that she loved him and now is acting this way. And Paige is like, things can change. And like, hello, this is so hard to watch because that's literally like what happened to Paige and Craig. Because it doesn't matter that Paige and Craig were talking about their wedding a few days before. And, like people can change their minds at the drop of a hat. Also, I don't think Sienna actually ever said I love you. I think Shep made that up because we've seen him change around things that have actually happened in reality to fit his narrative. But Paige isn't wrong. Like, if the person isn't telling you that they want to be with you, let them go. And then Paige says that her mom told her in her 20s that if they like you, you'll know it. And if they don't, let them go. And it's the whole like let them go part that stuck with me because that's the same thing that she said to Lindsay about Carl, right? Like in that pickup scene last year when Lindsay and Carl broke up, she was like, this is the best thing he's ever done for you. Let him go. In a year from now, you could be married with a baby with somebody else. Let him go. So the fact that she also said to Shep, like, let her go, let her go. It must be like the exact way her mother said it to her because that's the exact way she always says it now. So everyone goes out on the boat without Sienna because, of course, she didn't make it. And Shep talks about how Sienna wanted him to buy her a $10 million house and that maybe he's not rich enough for her. The fact that he can't fathom, like, that she just wouldn't want to be with him for, like, his personality or for, like, some other reason that it has to be about money is just so Shep, right? Because in his mind, he cannot understand why a woman would not want to be with him. And that's truly why I believe he's in this place in the first place. I don't believe that they truly have all these things in common. I truly believe he is here for the chase because he cannot accept that there is a woman who doesn't like him. On that note, Sienna actually had something to say about this. So she has obviously, over the past few weeks, been all over the internet saying her piece, and I don't really blame her. But I'm gonna play this clip of this TikTok that she made. It's kind of long as well, but it gives her response to the $10 million house comment that Shep made.
No clue what it is that I do that elicits such deep rooted insecurity in men and in people in general, but mostly men. And I have suffered by the hands of insecure men because this thing, I mean, if we're on a boat and we pass by a community that my parents used to have a home in that community, and there's a lot of beautiful homes there. And I said to him, I would love to live there one day. Does that mean that I asked him to buy me a $10 million house? No way. He cannot afford to buy a $10 million house in that place. So why would I ask him? I'm not an idiot. But I mean, just because he's feeling insecure in that episode and he's feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough for Sienna, I don't deserve her, blah, blah, blah. I have never said anything or done anything to him to make him feel like he was not worthy of me as a partner. You know, I've only ever been a good friend to him. He went through a lot of personal issues that I was there and I was very supportive of. I mean, extremely supportive of. Issues that he dealt with in his life, issues that he dealt with the cast. I mean, I was on his side. I was his friend. I never ever judged him for anything, like nothing. And I was 100% authentic. And I never asked him to say, oh, I want to get on the show or blah, blah, blah. It was never that situation. I probably was the first person that he's ever met who met him, didn't judge him for his past initially, when we first met at least, and took it at face value. And then I decided that he wasn't the right person for me. And that's what people are allowed to do that. But yet I'm being villainized for it. And I'm being villainized because he's feeling insecure. And that's not my problem. Relationship after relationship, men who are insecure have come out. That ugliness has come out in the form of either hatred towards me or serious self-pity. And it's ugly. You know, it's not something that I deserve because I've only ever been 100% authentic, 100% kind. I mean, my kindness is kicking me in the butt now because the only reason I showed up to film with the group was because I was being kind, is because I was being hospitable, because I wanted to see everyone, I wanted to greet everyone. They'd already come down to the Bahamas and I felt like I had an obligation. Not just an obligation, but I wanted to hang out with everyone. And I felt like I had an obligation to say hi to them because they're there because of me. So obviously I'm gonna go and I'm gonna go to dinner, even if I had already come to the decision that, hey, this isn't what I really want, or this isn't what I want my life to be. And now I'm really suffering because, well, not really suffering, but I've never been subject to this much negative attention, and I feel like it's really unwarranted because I didn't ask for it. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't date Shep and say, I want to be on the show, X, Y, and Z. He said, oh, I think you could be one of the greats. We could have our own show one day, us in the Bahamas, blah, blah, blah. He's trying to sell reality TV life to me. I was never interested in being a reality TV star. So, but no, I know that. Why would I ask him to do that? I know that he couldn't afford it. And I can't afford it, so it makes no sense.
Okay, I'm not feeling bad for Sienna, obviously. I do completely agree with her in the sense that I do think he is purely just making these comments because he's feeling insecure. But at the same time, she's sort of giving Raquel Leviss and the whole, like, I need to come back with everything. That being said, if she is getting a lot of hate, like, I feel bad for her for that. But, I'm getting sick of sort of telling her story every week, to be honest, because, like, The whole Shep and Sienna thing to us is just funny. Like it really is. I hope people aren't giving her serious hate. Shep will move on. He always does. While he does seem really hurt in this one sense, can we all not agree that he deserves it? He deserves to have a little bit of a taste of his own medicine. Like, and he'll be fine. Like, he'll be fine. So we have a little bit of beef between Sally, Carson, and Taylor and Green. And I think we always will because of their shared many mutual exes. I mean, there's Andrew, there's Gaston, there's Shep. But anyways, Sally has done some press this week because she was on Watch What Happens Live. So she was in New York and she did an interview where she was talking about how she has more information about what happened between Austin and Taylor. So as you'll recall, last season of Southern Charm was all about what happened between Austin and Taylor. They say it was just a kiss. Olivia thinks it was more. She thinks that they had sex. So Sally actually speaks to it on Us Weekly. So I'm going to play you guys that clip.
More happening between Taylor and Austin. Is that,
oh, yeah. I did.
Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Really drunk at that interview, not having a filter. Yeah, no, I had a conversation with Austin in the Bahamas. It was not filmed, and he just kind of told me that, you know, they definitely got handsy with each other. More happened than a makeout, but not sex. But the only reason that they didn't go all the way is because, you know, they're just, and he was too intoxicated.
Got it.
Yeah. So equipment wasn't working.
Equipment wasn't working. Were you surprised that Shep forgave?
I don't know if you guys could hear that because she kind of whispers it, but she says they got a little handsy with each other, and the only reason they didn't go further was because he was too intoxicated. So, wow. I mean, this was like a whole debate for a whole season, but I kind of feel like no one really cares about this now because nobody cares about it now. I mean, Taylor's moved on, Austin's moved on, Shep had forgiven them either way. But people were talking about it online, I guess. Well, I guess it bothers me in the sense that they maintained their innocence. They maintained that it was just a kiss for so long. So if they got handsy, I mean, we don't really have new information because what does handsy mean, right? Like, how far did they go, right? Like, was it a finger bang? Like, was it anything? Like, I really don't know, right? So, but at the end of the day, I guess it really doesn't matter if everyone's been forgiven and other people have moved on. But online, somebody said, "What's up with this obsession Sally has with Taylor? Is Sally that hurt because of Gaston?" And Taylor commented back, "I'm glad it reads." I don't know if it reads that she is. I think Sally is just trying to do her job, and Taylor is trying to find a way to fit into a cast that she just no longer fits into. Also online, Sally was talking about JT, and somebody said to Sally online, maybe the girlfriend didn't want to film, unlike the thirsty, cringy ponytail guy you inflicted upon the viewers, which is Andrew, who she's no longer with. And then Sally responded, LOL facts, but he was showing Vanita interest while he hit her. So that's true. I mean, it is very weird. Like, we should not be coming down on Vanita for like being a homewrecker when like JT was giving her signs that he was interested in her, which is the fucked up part. Like, Vanita should not have even felt that she could have straddled JT, right? Because he shouldn't be giving off the vibes and the impression and the words to Vanita that that's even a possibility. He shouldn't be showing an interest to her if he has a girlfriend. So that's on JT's part. Let's move into Southern Hospitality, which I'm just going to do a mini recap on in terms of just kind of the main couples that I wanted to talk about, because I feel like we're seeing some of the same themes all over again, and I just kind of want to go into those a little bit. So we've got Maddie and Joe. And Maddie is in a place in her life where she feels like she wants to pump the brakes with Joe on talking about the future. So she wants to be financially independent because she doesn't want to get fucked over by men, which, hello, I completely agree. While Joe is sort of in this place where he wants to hit the ground running with her. He wants to get married to her. He wants to move in with her. And she just needs to kind of take it back a notch, not only just because she's a sober person, but also a person who got out of a really shitty relationship where she was living with the guy. She also wants to work on her career. And Maddie just feels like Joe needs to work on his career growth because right now he's just like following her around like a little puppy. So then we see Brad, Will, and Joe going golfing, and that's where we see Joe complaining about how Maddie never comes to his place and he's spending so much money on Ubers. And I feel for him in that sense. I feel like Maddie, if she's never going to his place, that definitely is some selfishness on her part. But I think he needs to take that as a sign. Like, if you're putting 100% into this relationship at this point, right? You want to move in, you want to get married, you want to follow her around to all of her DJ gigs, you go to her place every time. Maybe she's not in the same place in the relationship as you are. Like, think about that, right? Like, maybe take that as a sign. And then there's also a scene where Joe's meeting up with Leva for lunch, and she talks to him about how he doesn't really seem like motivated for himself and his career anymore, and how he can't just follow Maddie around or he'll resent her. And he's having trouble, like, sort of understanding this, but he's just like, I don't want to leave her to travel alone. But again, he doesn't seem to know his partner because Maddie is not that type. She's like, I'm fine to go by myself. And it seems like they're really on different pages, and I feel like he could lose her if he keeps pushing her to move so fast. Maddie also talks about how Joe was trying to convince her not to be friends with Grace. And at the end of the day, like, is Grace a flake? Yes. Is she like not the most reliable friend? Of course. But she's not a bad person. And if your friendships ebb and flow, I mean, friendships do ebb and flow. Like at the end of the day, whatever, their friendships is ebbing and flowing. And Maddie says that she's starting to feel like borderline suffocated by Joe, and she doesn't want someone telling her what to do. So that's the thing about Maddie that Joe doesn't seem to realize. Like, she's super independent. She isn't looking for a codependent relationship like the one Will and Emmy is in. That's not her vibe. So it's almost like they have opposing love languages, and I'm actually worried they're not going to work out because of it. Okay, now I just want to move on to Will and Emmy. So this relationship is such a dumpster fire. But yeah, when we have the guys going golfing, where Joe is talking about Maddie, we have Will talking about, being in that place where he wants to settle down. And Brad is sort of nagging him a little bit without Will noticing. And he's like, so you're cool for Emmy to like live the housewife life. And Will's like, yeah, I mean, Emmy's really good at like being my backup, which then he defines as her like doing laundry and dishes and cleaning. So basically a maid. And he says that he needs to pay her back. And Brad's like, so you're gonna pay her back through marriage. And Will says, well, like having a life together where like he works and she takes care of the rest. And it really just seems like the most business deal shit I've ever heard. And I've actually never even seen them be romantic with each other now that I think about it. Like even when he asks her to prom, because like that's the theme of this episode, they have like a Republic prom. He does like the balloons and everything for her that he's written on. He's written prom with like a magic marker on balloons. It's so makeshift, it's so half-assed. And even that just feels like their relationship, very half-assed. And then Brad, Austin, and JT go running and they talk more about the Will Law School rumor, the whole cheating rumor. And Austin says that it didn't come from his girlfriend. So he has a girlfriend named Allie, and Allie's brother goes to law school with Will. So Will thinks that it's Allie's brother that started this rumor, and Austin is saying, like, no, it didn't come from my girlfriend Allie's brother. And oh, also, this was like the guy who Will is saying that, like, oh, this guy is trying to like bully me and otherize me because I'm on Bravo. And Austin says, like, Allie's family doesn't fuck with him, so that's definitely not what happened, but he wouldn't say who the rumor's from. Okay, obviously, Austin heard it from Allie, who heard it from her brother. But because he just got back together with Allie and her family hates him, he's not going to try to get them to do more or drag her family through the mud. So he's like, no, no, it's someone else I heard it from. I'm like, okay, like I know Charleston is small, but like how many people do you know that go to this law school, Austin? So yeah, I do think that he heard it from Allie, who heard it from her brother. But that's all we have on Southern Hospitality. And then next week is the finale, and then after that, the reunion. So I'm really looking forward to both of those because it looks like Will gets dragged into a lot more cheating rumors. Okay, let's move on to the Traitors. So I normally don't do Traitors news, and I forgot to tell you guys that I watch the Traitors. I mean, I love the Traitors. Of course, I love the Traitors. It's like one of the most camp, beautifully produced, hilarious, fun shows on TV. I'm living my best dream just watching this show every week, I swear. But so something that's been going around is that Danielle, so as we all know, she's a traitor, okay, spoiler alert, but Chrishell has been doing a lot of press this past week. She did Caitlin Bristow's podcast Off the Vine, and she said that Danielle told everyone on the cast that she wasn't a traitor, and she actually swore on her grandkid's life. So then production apparently took that out, so we're not actually going to see it. But that's why apparently the whole cast really hates Danielle because she swore on her grandkid's life that she wasn't a traitor, which is insane because we know she is. So yeah, that's a pretty weird, gross thing to do, but everyone hates Danielle anyways, so I don't think we expected any different from her. Then Chanel Ayan came out with a really bizarre tweet. You guys are gonna die. Like, this is, I don't know what this is. So Chanel says, I have tea that is so hot, and I don't give a fuck. The humans of planet Earth need to know someone is in love with Tom Sandoval, and he is scared shitless about that person and is avoiding her so bad. I think she is not his type, but she is fun. Who the fuck is she talking about? Some people were commenting Chriselle, but like, I do not think Chriselle is in love with him. I don't know. I don't know. Like, Brittany, no, Brittany has kids. I, he says she. I don't know. I wonder if she's gonna bring this up at the reunion or if she's just being crazy. Like Chanel Ayan is like a character. So I who do you guys think it could be? Gabby, obviously not. Um, Danielle, no. Everyone hated Tom. Who was in love with Tom? I can't even remember some of the other women on the show. Sierra, no, obviously not. Dolores, no. Dorinda, no. Robin, no. Chanel, what are you talking about? Literally, I can't even picture. I don't know if anyone's gonna be able to get this out of her, but like we need to follow up with Chanel on that. And just a little bit more of Traitors news. So I know a lot of you guys are just discovering our amazing Gabby Windy. I've known her many a years from The Bachelorette. She is so fucking funny. She really is God's gift to reality television. And I guess Dave Portnoy also agrees because he is the president of Barstool Sports. He's also a major asshole, total piece of shit. So this guy apparently messages Gabby and then she shared the screenshot and he wrote, "So you're the next big thing is what I'm being told." And she starts to write, "Who's this diva cup?" before she presses send. I fucking love Gabby. She is everything. So the finale and reunion are dropping this Thursday. I couldn't be more excited. I wish it was going on longer. And I think my favorite part of the Traitors is just, yeah, like the campiness of it, the silliness of it. Like, do I understand the gameplay? No, not really. But I love just watching a bunch of reality stars just trying to figure it out. I mean, even just that thing with like the nursery rhyme and them doing it backwards, it was like honesty, like it was just the funniest thing I've ever seen. It was like peak comedy. Peak comedy is where we are. All right, guys, thank you so much. I love you guys. I will see you next time. Love you, BBs. Thank you for listening to the Bravo Investigator Podcast in partnership with Hurrdat Media. You can watch full-length videos on Hurrdat Entertainment's YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at the Bravo Investigator. If you enjoy the show, please leave me a 5-star review. Love you, BBs. See you next time.
A Hurrdat Media Production.